Welcome to It Takes a Family, a podcast that helps take parenting from desperation to hope. I am one of your hosts. I'm Andy.
Hi, Andy. I'm one of
Hi.
your hosts. I'm Kelly. Hey, once a week we highlight experts and other parents like you who have been in the trenches of parenting, bringing hard lessons learned and insights on how to navigate even the most difficult of family circumstances.
And today we're continuing to kind of talk through our 5 elements of whole family healing here at Eagle Ranch. And we're talking about how to kind of recognize your child's unique gifts and skills and triggers. And so we decided to get somebody who's just had lots of children and has lots of experience in this, and to kind of hear some of his story. And so Wade Pearce, welcome. We're glad
Thank
you're
you.
here.
I'm glad to be here. It's an honor.
Wade.
Thank you very much.
Wade is an educator, a graduate of Auburn University by way of Leeds High School. And Wade and his wife, Chris, have 4 children. He'll tell us a little bit about that here in a minute. But he started the school here at Eagle Ranch, and that was kind of his start here as an educator, and now is the senior director of program here and helps all of our internal programs at the ranch. As well as a foster and adoptive parent. So, Wade, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Glad to be here.
So tell us where we always start. Tell us about the family you grew up in
Okay.
and the one you lead now.
Yes, that's a great question. The family I grew up in was, grew up in Leeds, Alabama. My dad and mom had 2 children, myself and my sister. I had an older sister named Pam and myself, and it was just the 4 of us as far as, that growing up there. But it's important to look up above them because a part of who I am and who I'm shaped to be is from my 2 grandfathers. One being a truck farmer in Verbena, Alabama, very slow, steady, same thing. Did the same. That's all he ever did his whole life. So my mom grew up on a farm there in Verbena, picked cotton, watermelon, cantaloupe. It was just, I think they moved to that house in 1943. And so when she married my dad in 1960 or 61, she married a guy who was a true entrepreneur, which is my father. He's owned so many different types of businesses. Construction was his main thing. He's a master carpenter. But he never saw an opportunity he didn't like. And he's probably made more money than I'll ever make, but he's probably also lost more money than I'll ever make. So he had this, steady mom that, she was just a plotter, but she was very, very sweet and compassionate. And then my dad was going all the time. He never stopped working. So I grew up in an environment where my sister and I also never were allowed to stop working. And she was firstborn, and then I was the baby of the family. But my sister had some real struggles, mental health-wise and other things as she was growing up. And so in our work, we would say that she abdicated the firstborn, and I became what's called a baby hero.
We learned about that.
Yeah, we've heard about the baby hero. We
We're
know
gonna
about the
get
baby
We're
hero.
going to get you a shirt that says baby hero.
Baby hero. They're very good employees because all they want to do is please. And so anyway, so one of my interests in working at Eagle Ranch or in family systems work is that I wish that we as a family would have looked at our family unit as the issue and not my sister, because we always felt like if we could fix her, because she had a lot of struggles, a lot of problems, a lot of opposition to my parents. So I watched her oppose my parents, and I decided the way I'm going to get along in life is make my parents happy. And that's been very important into how I parent my own children. But so my sister, she passed away at 50, and my mom passed away in 2022. So it's just my dad and me now, and our relationship has never been stronger since it's just the 2 of us. And we've grown closer, especially as we took care of my mom her last year of life. So anyway, that's my family of origin.
Yep.
Okay.
It still impacts me today, big time. I still never want to disappoint my dad. You jump to our life. Chris and me were married back in 1988. We had Jamie in 1997, our oldest, and then Lindsay in 1999, and then my son Wade in 2002. So they're 27, 26, and 23. And then by God's grace, we were able to adopt Avery. We don't even say we adopted Avery anymore. We say that she adopted us because we are so much more blessed by her than she is by us at this point. Everything transitioned. We started fostering her in spring of 2019. I think the adoption was solidified in 22. But anyway, she's 8 now. So she has the great, I think, a real, the benefit of having older parents that it's not all benefits because I'm pretty tired. But we're getting a do-over in parenting, which has been just really magnificent. And so anyway, that plays into a lot is my 3 older kids and then my 8-year-old. And then we started fostering in 1996 and probably have had 40 or 50 children come through our home in that time. Not all we're in close relationship with, but about, 8 of them we're very close to.
Still.
Okay. Yeah.
So I find this, I was telling them I like this question every time we talk to somebody who's had a lot of children in their home. Like, what was the motivation? Why did you and Chris start? And then even maybe the better question, why did you keep doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question too. We started back when I became an assistant principal at West Hall Middle School back in 1995. There was an incident where I had two boys that came into school that had been homeless in Houston with their dad. He sent them out to live with their mom. So I knew what these 2 guys had been through, but they were heck on wheels. They were they were really tough to deal with. So they were just running the school.
Sure.
One of the boys ended up getting charges pressed on him because of a bus fight that he got into, and the parents of the other child pressed charges. So I was in juvenile court with him, and the judge said, "Hey, is there a group home that might take this child?" And they said, "No, there's no group home." And he said, "Well, what about foster home? Is there a place that he could go live in a foster family because he can't go back home?" And the caseworker said, "No, there's really no foster homes that'll take him. He's too violent." And he said, "All right, well, we'll just lock him up in RYDC until we find a place for him or until he goes to court." Now, this is a 12-year-old boy who sat in my office in cuffs. And I remember he wiped his nose with his knee. And I was like, "James, have you been in handcuffs before?" And he goes, "Yes, it's probably my 5th time." It's like,
At
"You're only 12.
Oh my God.
So, but the brokenness in that kid was coming out as opposition towards all of us. I mean, his theme song was "Fight the Power." So he was tough. But I went home to Chris that night and I just said, "Would we ever consider fostering?" And so we decided we would. We felt like the Lord was calling us to. I always had a heart for kids that were, even when I was a teacher, they always put kids in my class who were kind of offbeat, that weren't really succeeding in school. And those are the kids I enjoyed. So he represented that for me.
Yeah.
And then we became foster parents at that point. And that was in 1996.
Did you foster both the boys or just the one?
What, those two guys?
Were they brothers, the 2 guys, or no?
Those 2 guys were brothers, but we didn't foster them.
Okay.
It took us 10 weeks to go through the training.
Okay.
He was just the impetus into
Gotcha.
giving us a heart.
Okay.
So we, so then we got our first placement maybe a couple months later.
Okay.
Gotcha. All right. So, you're bringing in all of these different kids from different backgrounds and different experiences. Then you have your own biological children; they have their own, sort of uniquenesses. How have you and Chris kind of identified? Hey, here's a particular gift in a child that we find really valuable, or hey, this is something a trigger, or it's something that we need to maybe avoid. This is something that hurts them. Like, kind of, how have you worked through that process with all these different kids?
Well, I mean, you learn the hard way. You learn by mistakes. I can give you so many times where I did the wrong thing, or when you're in the moment, your anger takes over. You react in a way that's not becoming,
right.
that you wouldn't want anybody to see.
Right.
Generally, in that moment, you feel like you're right and they're wrong.
Yeah.
And then an hour or two later, or at 2 a.m. when you wake up, you're like, oh my goodness, I handled that poorly. So the big thing that we learned over the years that both Chris and I agree on is that you, as a parent, you're stewarding a child's life. Those children were created by God. They were given to you as a blessing. I'm not saying that they always act like a blessing, or nor do I.
Right.
But God gives us a life, and the life we return to Him is our gift to Him.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing with children, when they're given to us as those Genesis 1:26-27 as image bearers of a creative God, then the first thing you need to do is become a detective or a talent agent and start becoming curious about what their interests are, what it is that they enjoy, or what makes them tick, because they're all so different. My oldest, I remember Chris telling me that I was at work. I came home and she said, Jamie is such a people person that she would sit in her high chair and ask Chris, can you write down my people? And she said, who's your people? Well, Grandpa and me, Mama, Nana and Pawpaw, and then there were several people at church. She couldn't read, but Chris would write her a list and place it on her high chair, and she'd kind of, okay. So she'd relax. And man, so she's obviously a people person. She enjoys relationships and that kind of thing. And so we knew that we had to have her around people. That's one of the reasons that we were big homeschool proponents when we started out. But when my oldest daughter was in third grade, so she was in third, Lindsay would have been in first, and Jay Wade would have been pre-K, and Chris was homeschooling them. Jamie needed to be around other kids.
Yeah.
So we shifted and put the two girls in private school with, there were two reasons. She's a firstborn par excellence.
Right.
She plays the role really well. So she likes to be in charge.
Yeah.
And so I had two reasons. I said, Chris, homeschool's done. Number one, she needs to be around other kids. She needs the social. She needs Number two is she needs somebody to boss around besides you and her sister. So let's let her go to a school and allow a teacher to say, hey, here's your job for the week. And you're the line leader. You get to clean up or whatever it is. So that's it. It was becoming, it's just becoming curious about what makes them tick and how different they all are and the gifts that God has given them. All three of our kids, one of the gifts that my father gave me, even though all parents wound their children.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you just say?
All parents wound their children.
Okay, I thought you said ruined. So
Well, I've done that too. But wound in the sense that
sure.
Yeah.
you're because you're a sinner, you're gonna make mistakes and do things. So, but Dad said, son, two things: if you do something you love, and you spend less than you make, you're gonna be okay.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, okay. And
It's like the original Dave Ramsey.
original Dave Ramsey. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he was a contractor, owned his own business. I worked for him. I was just labor because I'm not a skilled electrician, plumber, carpenter, you name it. I
Right.
can knock down walls and, clean up. So, but all the men that I worked with said, when are you going to take over your dad's business? So I was feeling pressure that I was one day going to need to take over. And he said, no, I want you to do what you enjoy. So that's what we've seen, raising our kids to be independent and then kind of put them in front of a lot of different options.
Yeah.
And then start supporting the things that they like.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of trajectory, and always keeping in mind what kind of relationship do I want to have with them when they're in their 20s. And don't get short-sighted over their behavior and what they're doing right at the moment, because it's going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I've heard you talk about before in the past, maybe more in the context of an educator than even as a parent, but I think both. You've talked about the circle of courage, and particularly as it relates to the mastery. Like, give us like the quick recap on circle of courage, and then talk about like that idea of mastery within kind of the way that you led the school and educated and your own kids, like, and the power of that for people.
All right, so the Circle of Courage comes out of Reclaiming Youth International, and it's just it's a Native American philosophy that says that kids need four things to thrive.
Okay.
And belonging, they need a sense of belonging, that they belong to something bigger than themselves. That's the reason God created family. So that's where you build trust. They're not going to do anything unless they trust you. Second is mastery. Every child is good at something. So it's your job as a parent to steward that, to put them in places that they can figure out what it is they enjoy doing and what they're excited about and what they engage in. Far more important than career is let them gain the interest and move towards that. So mastery, and that also gives them a sense of self-efficacy, that I've got something that I can work at and become better at, and I'm gifted at this. And then independence is the third component, and that means that you provide structure for their lives. If they make good choices, good things happen. If they make bad choices, bad things happen. But you never break relationship. You stay in it with them no matter what choice they make, because they're your kids, just like God does with us. And then the last is generosity. When those first three come together, you're going to see kids be generous towards others.
Yeah.
They're going to want to help other people and that kind of thing. So when you see a kid who's naturally generous, you can see that somehow those other three have been in his or her life. So the mastery part of it is the fun part for us. If we as parents can get out of the mode of living vicariously through our children, oh, it's beautiful, because then you can just let them follow their interest and support them in those interests, and they don't feel the pressure of me as their dad saying, this is the way to be successful. Yeah. This is how, because they're going to find their niche. And my three oldest, by the grace of God, they're just thriving in their careers, which the best therapy is a good job where you fit. That was a concept that I heard years ago about working with ADHD kids. It's like, let them find, if they are interested in insects, then every project in science needs to be about insects until that runs out. And then if they get interested in astronomy, well, let them go.
Right.
That kind of thing.
So, give me maybe some examples of ways that you and Chris, kind of in your parenting journey, either with the four or with foster kids, kind of applied that mastery idea and sort of helped to support their interests.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you look at my son, for instance, when he got interested in something, he became really intense. Like when he was interested in fishing, it was fishing 24/7. It was, let's go look at tackle boxes, let's look at fishing rods, then it was lures, and let's go to the lake and fish. We did that. He got interested in hunting, And so we sat in tree stands. I haven't hunted since, but I hunted with him
Right.
for, it was probably about 3 years that he had a great interest in hunting. And then he had an interest in shoes, in buying and selling Jordans and all these different things, different types of shoes, and the money you could make on the shoes. And he would sell on eBay, and then he'd buy on eBay and all kinds of things like that. And so we just followed each one of those. I wanted him to play football. We tried for a season. It just was not his sport. Tennis, that's my sport. I tried to get him, Jamie and Lindsay, to play tennis, and just wasn't their thing. So, okay, you just give that up. But what he did land on was basketball, and that became his passion, and support him in that. And then he eventually, through a lot of trial and error and injuries, ended up playing a season of basketball at Anderson University, which was really good for him, but it's led to his career in physical therapy. He's studying physical therapy now because of that injury. As far as foster kids go, I can remember a boy in our home that was giving Chris all kinds of fits. I was working on our well was broken, and I was working on fixing the well, and she said, "You've got to get this kid out of here." So I took him with me to Home Depot to buy a part, and I forgot to bring the part I was replacing with me, and he stood there at 9 or 10 years old and said, "That part is not going to work." And I was like, "What do you know? You're a 10-year-old. It's like, it won't fit." And I was like, "It will fit." Got back, it wouldn't fit. And it was obvious that his spatial recognition, he couldn't read well, but he could picture things. And so we got him tinkering in the garage. He was taking things apart, putting them back together, that kind of thing. His brother, we would take them different places, and he fell in love, wanted to become a fighter pilot after visiting the Air and Space Museum in Pensacola, and now he joined the Navy. He wasn't able to become a pilot, but he's retiring from the Navy this year.
Yeah.
September 30th. He had a 20-year career there, and I could go through a lot of those different kids, but it's mainly being curious and following their interests and allowing them to. And if they'll become engaged in something, it's amazing what happens with how much they're willing to read about it, research it, rather than me trying to force them to.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, what would you have to say to a parent maybe that's struggling with maybe having a vision for their child and it's not panning out? How much of that is how you deal with the kid, and how much of that is how you deal with yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any advice or thoughts about that, experience with that?
That's a great question. The thing is, your only vision for your child can be, how can I maintain a great relationship, no matter what they do, because they're going to make decisions regardless of our input. But what we can do is stay in a posture of curiosity and grace and patience towards them that will create a long-lasting relationship. It's amazing how many kids, when they feel the pressure come off from the parent of, you have to do this, they'll circle back and do it anyway. I've seen that a lot. And especially with foster kids, they all default. They have a daddy or mommy default.
Yeah.
Whoever their birth parents are, they're going to try that out. They can't help it. It's like a honing device that God put in us.
In terms of being like them?
Yeah, they're going to have to try something out.
Okay.
Don't know exactly what it'll be, but it'll eventually come. So I think our job is to teach them how to get a vision for themselves. Is to what is it you are interested in? What would you like to do? I mean, and it changes. constantly changes. It goes from helicopter pilot to teacher to pediatrician to.
And then, like, what is that in ourselves as a parent when we're like that, when we just have such like we just had someone on the podcast, she was self-admittedly like complete control freak, like, and having to let go. And, what is that, and what advice do you have towards the parent that's struggling? What do they need to work on or look at?
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, first of all, you can't just tell a parent like that, hey, stop controlling or take a deep breath.
Yeah.
They're going to have to go back in their family of origin and kind of look at where that came from and have some sort of just do some work around what is it that's causing me. Like, Dallas Willard, I love Dallas Willard, but in one of his sermons, I'll never forget, he said, my wife knows when I'm irritated before I know I'm irritated. And because she can see it in my body posture, she can see it in my language, and he said, but what I've learned is when she says you're irritated, then my question has got to be, why am I irritated? And then the next step is I need to get with the Lord and look, or a therapist or someone, and figure out what is this that's causing me to be uneasy. Because when we're an anxious presence with our kids, if I'm feeling a ton of anxiety around my son has got to make a decision, the more he feels that, the more that he's going to rebel against it and back up. And so in order to save our life, we have to lose it. And some I've spent so many years trying to save everybody's life, not just my own. I wanted it for them more than they wanted it for themselves. Yep. And so I think that's but it's not easy to do that, to slow down and ask, why is it that I feel that I need to? But then if you can be at peace with no matter what your kids, how they're behaving, then that's the secrets, that's the keys to the kingdom. If I can be at peace no matter, now that doesn't mean that I'm not sad or concerned but I'm at peace. And I learned this too. One of my son, I was a principal in Hall County schools, and I had a lot invested in him doing well in Hall County schools. And there was an occasion where he didn't do so well, and I was so angry. I remember I handled it so poorly. I just handled it poorly. But it was that night when I woke up at 2 a.m. It's like, I've got to apologize to him tomorrow. There was no reason. I was so demeaning and disrespectful towards him. But the thing that God taught me through that is, Wade, all I'm asking you to do is be authentically engaged with your son like I am with you. When you make mistakes, I'm there. When you do well, I'm there. And so it changed my whole parenting philosophy.
So to tell him you're sorry and why you were sorry. And
just the rupture and repair. And I still, at that time, I didn't do a great job of it because I had still too much pride, but I did the best I could with what I had. And there's no villains in family systems. We're all doing the best we can with what we got.
We're at,
people don't have an alcohol problem. It's an alcohol solution for them. They're addicts because they're trying to solve an internal struggle. And so it was a control solution for me. I needed to control him so that I could feel better. Wow. Once you get past that.
So it just does not escape me, Wade, that where you are now as sort of our senior director of program here at Eagle Ranch and overseeing the staff and helping with the families and kids, like do you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be?
I do now. I didn't when I first came back.
Really?
But in 2019, I didn't. Ooh.
What am I doing?
But I do now, and it took until the spring of 2024 until I got there,
Yep.
where I became, and that's another part of all of my journey is you stick with it until you learn what God's trying to teach.
Mm.
And
So, what was he trying to teach you, Wade?
it probably had a lot to do around. It's easier for me to explain the signpost. The first one was probably that God is at work no matter what we're doing. That God He has got a master plan, and we're a small and vital part of it, but we don't really. All we can control is our relationship with Him. So that's it. So that was probably the first, and that was through reading Genesis over and over and looking at how Judah had relations with his stepdaughter, and I'm sorry, I'll get that, but yeah, it was through Judah. They had 2 boys, and I'm sitting there reading that story, and it's like, how could God work through an incestuous relationship? 2 sons are born, and I flip over to Matthew, and one of those boys there, or Perez actually, is in Jesus' lineage. And then you think of Rahab, and so God's at work. It's exciting. I get to be a part of it, but I don't have to control the outcomes. So that was the first lesson, and then there was others after that. That
That's a good way.
the whole concept of being a non-anxious presence. I didn't realize how much the anxiety is the enemy. In most households, there's a fumes of chronic anxiety like there is gas. It's just there. It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
And then the kid acts out. That's the match that causes the explosion. And we can't blame that kid because the noxious fumes, if they're there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I began to see is like, I'm creating noxious fumes by my desire to control, and I can't turn loose of certain things and that kind of thing. And so, but when the explosion happened, I was blaming them, and that's blame displacement. It's me. And that's so freeing.
Right. It's some
I've only got to
level,
work
right?
on one person.
Yeah.
Right.
It's me.
God's got the rest of this. So.
Yeah, and all my kids and everybody else. It's
man.
beautiful when you get there.
Well, this was awesome. Wade, thank you for taking time out and just sharing with us so real. So real. So we appreciate that. I want to thank everyone who tuned in today, and we just hope this episode was encouraging to you and maybe gave you a couple insights that you can use. Encourage you to tune in next week for stories from parents like you to hear their hard lessons and insights they wish they knew going through parenting as well.
Yeah, we do hope that you enjoyed this. And if you did, you can leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And it helps other people kind of learn about what we're doing and pass it along. Feel free to connect with Facebook and Instagram. Let us know topics you may want to listen to or things you may want to hear more of. They're going to be saying, we want more Wade, right? I can just feel it. That there will be cries for more Wade Pearce.
Well, you can't
shouting from the rooftops.
That's right.
So thank you so much. I mean, this has
thank
been
you.
really
It's
wonderful.
great. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you and your friendship and your work here at the ranch.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great week.
Thanks.